Paradigm Shift.
An educational comedy.
It's not a cause, not a movement.
It's not a social group you can slap a label onto.
It's an idea. It's an intention.
It's an intuition.
A mindset in which reality can be explored.
It's a genuine expression,
Discernment,
critical thinking, and imagination.
To look inward upon ourselves.
To better understand the external world around us.
and yes,
Few egos are bound to be bruised.
With our silly, zany, politically incorrect,
George Carlin built style of going about things.
real and raw honesty.
Which invites you to be
to the fullest.
Hello everybody, and welcome to yet another crazy edition of Paradigm Shift and Educational Comedy. I'm Dave Kelso, and we have here with us Richard Hamilton, and Katerina Roy will hopefully be along shortly. She said she is. She was just texting me on Facebook a few minutes ago saying that she's going to be, and she's showing us online, and she's got the join link and all that happy stuff. So I don't know, maybe she had to like run to the bathroom real quick or something. I have no idea, but hopefully she'll be right along with us here. And we always have the theme of the year at the beginning of the year, and normally we do this within like the first week of the year, but appropriately that's not the way it happened. We're sitting here just after Valentine's Day, February 16th. So it's kind of on theme because the year of darkness, which is what this year is, that's not a negative connotation, because darkness is where to shine like a motherfucker. And 2018, both on the individual level and the collective level, has been fucking nuts. So it just seems like the whole collective Stockholm syndrome is just being thrown in everybody's face. It's just like, it's going crazy. So we're going to be on here talking about, obviously, some of the global stage stuff in the context of this being a year of darkness, and kind of cutting through the fake news, cutting through the left-right paradigm dickwag, cutting through the conspiracy rabbit hole bullshit, and just kind of, getting down to brass tacks. And also talking about stuff that's been going on in our personal lives and stuff like that that's also on theme. So, yeah, I think I will let Richard start this off, because we just had that lovely little mass shooting in Florida, and you got the right saying, oh, the shooter was a leftist, and you've got the left saying, oh, the shooter was a Trump supporter. And it's like, all right, let's just say the shooter was human, and if you really want to play the identity politics blame game, let's put it right there. I identify as human. We're all human, okay? Let's put the blame there if there's blame to be put anywhere. And so that's the main thing that Richard was kind of wanting to start off with. He's kind of got a lot to say on that. So lovely Year of Darkness video starting off with a mass shooting, because remember, gun-free zones are your friend. Ban spoons, they make you fat. So there you go. There's logic. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a good way to start, good place to start. I could say is 2018 thus far, or in the last month and a half, has been quite a ride indeed. I've noticed a lot more increased narcissism, even though that's been the theme for the last couple of years. It's just been progressively elevating ever since 2012, that more obvious narcissism of the human condition. But this to me feels like a broken record, deja vu, and I'm sure to many of you watching or listening or doing whatever the heck you're doing right now, probably the same thing to you, especially if you are sick and tired of the constant political rabbit game that is being played by both the mainstream media or the rabbit hole game being played by the mainstream media and people in general. People are addicted to the labels, the status, or the status quo, as it were. People are leaping to conclusions. People are demanding answers. People are playing the problem, reaction, solution game. People are in a nut house frenzy right now over this whole thing, and understandably so. 17 people have lost their lives in Parkland, Florida. 17 people, of various ages, teenagers, teachers, staff members. And I can understand why people are upset. People are angry. People are incensed. These types of acts are, beyond words. You can't really place that sort of carnage into words. It's just something that is awful and terrible, and it's natural that people are demanding answers, looking for solutions, and wanting to find meaning in all of this ridiculous chaos that life so often puts in our way, but I'm going to be the permission slip here, do something a little different. I could jump on the immediate political bandwagon and say, don't, and get all angry at people who want to ban guns and, go down that rabbit hole. But that rabbit hole is tired. It's an old argument. It's so repetitive and cliche. It's like, what does this accomplish? This constant arguing of should we ban them, should we not ban them? It doesn't accomplish anything at the end of the day. Those people are still dead. They're going to be buried. The families are talking to coroners at this moment and trying to, arrange for the final rites of their family members. They're heartbroken. They're sad. Their lives are shattered forever. Those people are on the other side of the veil. They're somewhere else in the quantum energetic entanglement field. They're with source. They're in some other timeline somewhere. Whatever buzzword you want to put into it, they're not here. They're not here with us in this timeline. They're gone. They've been removed. But anyway, the thing is that really bothers me is just the immediate, it wasn't even 2 hours had gone by, and immediately people were jumping all over social media and all over the internet and all over each other, practically in a frenzy, trying to be the first to sensationalize the story, trying to be first to get the answers, or to narrow it down, or to piece everything together. These types of attacks, whether people want to admit it or not, are all false flags, whether they were committed by a lone wolf, whether they were committed by multiple agencies, whether the reports of multiple shooters at the scene at Parkland High are true. We're only 2 or 3 days out from the most recent mass shooting. It's too early to tell. We can't just immediately start jumping on bandwagons and saying, oh, well, this is what happened, that's what happened. It's still fresh on all of our minds. And the biggest thing we need to do right now is to step back and to take a breath and to...
By the way, I'd like to remind people, for those who are familiar with the Veritas interviews, the nice little candid camera infiltrations where the Veritas project goes into all these different corporations, administrations, and whatever with the little hidden micro secret cameras and records everything. There's this one where they were, someone was in the whole, the Clinton Foundation administration, some aspect of that office, and talking kind of candidly about how they were starting riots at at free speech rallies and things like that, stirring up trouble and violence. And one of the key things that the one guy said, who was admitting to being party to all this, is that he's like saying, you don't need crisis actors or this or that, or whatever the conspiracy people are like to blow it up as. You can just give money to genuinely mentally disturbed people who already are messed up in the head, who are already have problems, who are already on a dozen different medications, are just like beyond wacko, and you can just hand them money and go, here, do that, and they'll be like, oh, okay. So it's like, it's amazing to me how many people think that it's just this major logical fallacy that a corporate or governmental entity couldn't possibly hand money to somebody who is already mentally disturbed.
Precisely.
And Katerina is here. Hi, Katerina.
Hi.
Love
Hi,
you.
Rich.
Hi, Katerina. Love you.
Love you too. Love you too.
Yeah, that's all I wanted to interject on that. I'll let you continue.
Okay. Well, anyway, to what you were saying, Dave, further my point, regardless of the semantics of the Parkland High School shooting, it doesn't take some massive government budget and a bunch of false flag, paid actors and multiple shooters to create havoc. All it takes is one loose cannon who is messed up in the head already, who is already on the mental malware, as it were, who is a symptom or a cough, as it were, of the already societal disease that is rampant in today's world, the narcissism, the anger, the hatred, everything that they constantly psychologically and subconsciously bombard us with on the daily already through psychological warfare and manipulation, MK Ultra, all of those things. He's a byproduct of that. And what he did is just a result of what already is in society. And what these shootings teach us as individuals is that the only way these types of tragedies are going to stop is not through gun control, is not through mental health, is not through any means whatsoever, tightening laws, regulating things more. Nothing will prevent humans from being humans. It's a biological thing. And the biggest thing I can urge to people right now who are watching, as hard as it is, as tough as it is, and as much as I sympathize with you, with your pain, is the first thing that you need to do is take a step back, take a breath, relax.
Hang on a second, my brothers.
Okay. And breathe, and not immediately jump to conclusion.
You make a really good point there when you were talking about, this guy being an end result, a byproduct. It reminds me of something I've been saying lately. Kind of putting this out there to people that, there's a lot of people that assume that humanity is in the state it's in because this ruling elite, these corporate criminals, these inbred bloodline families, Illuminatis, whatever buzzword, banksters, cabal, whatever buzzword anybody wants to use, that these people have done that to us, that humanity is the victims of that. But I challenge you to look at this another way. What if the globalists, or whatever anybody wants to call those people, what if they are the end result of humanity's dysfunction? What if they didn't cause it, but they are an end result of it? They are like the epitome poster children of the worst of the worst of the worst of humanity's collective narcissism focused into this situation. That it's not they that caused the situation, it's our refusal to take personal responsibility, our addiction to the fight, as it were. I mean, you know, you see like flat earthers versus globe earthers, and Christians versus Muslims, and Alex Jones and the InfoWar and whatever. But you know, what if the Earth got proven to be flat? Okay, what then, flat earthers? You know, now who are you? You've identified with and as your malware. You've identified with and as the fight. Okay, you're right. Uh-oh, now what? You know what I mean? Or what if God came back tomorrow to the Muslims and the Christians and pointed at one of them and said, you're right? Well, of course, the answer they give right now is, oh, well, we'd be happy because our God proved us right as we knew he would. But that's easy enough to say while you're in the middle of the fight. It's really hard to say once the fight is over because you've identified with the fight. What happens to the Alex Jonesers if the globalists could be defeated tomorrow? You know, who would they be? Who would they identify as?
Where's the justification at that point?
What would they do with themselves?
Right.
You know, on NCIS, they talk about how career military go through this. As Gibbs on NCIS has said, you can take the man out of the Marines, but you can't take the Marine out of the man. Once the man has formed their entire identity around being a Marine, because that's been their focus for 2 or 3 or 4 decades, and then they go into retirement, a lot of times they get depressed and go crazy and all this other stuff because they don't know who they are anymore. So that's the same thing that would happen with all these people focused on Christian versus Muslims, flat earth versus globe earth. Oh, the InfoWars, Alex Jones, oh, gotta get the globalists, blah, blah, blah. You know, it's like, what happened if the fight ended? You know, we accuse the so-called globalists of being warmongers, but wait a minute. Aren't we the warmongers? If you really want to look at it, who's allowing them to warmonger? It's our bloodlust that's allowing them to warmonger.
Oh, exactly. You know, and to be fair, it's not just the United States. It's not just, you know, it's every country on this planet, regardless. The military-industrial complex is a global organization, folks. It's not just based in the U.S. It's based all over the planet. And every problem that we see geopolitically today is due to our own willingness and complacency. Everything from this shooting, you know, now, of course, you know, before all of you jump and say, oh, wait a minute, how can you possibly say that, you arrogant piece of crap? You know, why would you say that it's our fault that this shooting happened? Well, don't mix my words, because this takes a little bit of in-depth explanation. As I said earlier, the shooter, Nicholas Cruz, is a byproduct of our society, and our society and our civilization throughout the course of human history has been based on conquest, the lust of war, the art of war. Sun Tzu, you know, some of the greatest philosophers of our time have written books on tactics, on military movements. You know, our civilization has been built on blood, and, you know, our advancement has been paid in the price of blood. I mean, look at World War II, World War I. How many hundreds, you know, millions of people died in each war? Tens of millions of people died in World War II. You know, close to 45 or 55 million people paid the ultimate price. Civilians, soldiers, regardless, on all sides, got to pay to excel us into the Cold War. And who knows how many countless millions of people have died as the resulting death tally since 1946 here in World War III. But my point is, it's been happening under our noses, folks, and the powers that be are the ultimate expression of what is wrong with our planet. We are based on building off of war. We're not based on building off of cooperation, building off of enlightenment, true enlightenment, meaning having an open mind and open heart, collaborating, being kind with one another, being respectful, you know, and genuinely being interested in working together, not, you know, not holding hands around a campfire singing "Kumbaya." You know, everybody gets along with everybody, because that's never going to happen.
We've normalized insanity.
We've normalized insanity.
Flipped and inverted. So that anything, that's what I refer to as not so common sense, the sense that should be common but isn't.
Mhm.
Usually when you say something that is just basic sanity, you get one of two reactions. People either think you're really wise and deep and profound, or they think you're just batshit delusional and that you should just go fuck off and die. You get one of two reactions.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, we've been living basically 5,000 years of history being controlled by Arkham Asylum villains, as it were, and through complete complacency. You know, nobody woke up in the morning. Nobody wakes up in the morning, and none of those parents who had their kids shot wake up physically in the morning and actually consciously think, you know, I want to be dominated today. I want to live in this world that we live in. I want these things. I want all this nasty stuff to happen. Nobody wakes up like that. I don't. Nobody does. Nobody wants to wake up that way. But it's not the consciousness. It's not conscious thought. It's subconscious. It's action through inaction. It's, you know, the pushing the buck off on somebody else. Oh, well, you know, I'm just, you know, whatever. You know, we all do it. I do it. Everybody does it. And this collective.
Can I give a mundane example of that right quick before some people's heads implode?
Sure.
Take, for example, like, this is so typical, so cliche. A girl, you know, in the process of growing up and becoming a woman, all she's ever dealt with is, you know, scumbag guys. And, you know, she didn't wake up one morning going, you know, I really just want to deal with scumbag guys. I would love that today. Please, scumbags, bring it on. No, she didn't do that. It's just that has been her experience. And so once that experience becomes normalized and her neural networks are wired that is reality, anything opposite that reality, fight or flight kicks in. It's like, oh, that's a danger. It would be like, it feels like somebody trying to say, no, not someone trying to say cough, cough, cough. Somebody trying to say, oh yeah, walk off that cliff. Gravity isn't going to pull you down to your death. And so that like sense of danger comes in, like, no, gravity's going to kill me if I walk off that cliff. That's how they perceive it when somebody says, you know, you may have dealt with a lot of assholes, but not all guys are like that. That's also the premise of racism too. Like, you know, white people that have been, you know, brutalized all their, you know, for all their lives by black gangbangers, or black people that have been oppressed by, you know, nasty Gestapo white cops and, you know, whatever. They, you know, once that's normalized, you've got that normalized prejudice. And when somebody tries to say, oh, well, not all black people are bad, not all white people are bad, not all cops are bad, not, you know, fight or flight kicks in, like, yeah, fuck you, you're setting me up to be a sucker. If I listen to you, I'm going to get hurt. No. So that self-preservation kicks in. That's what that shit is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Whenever people hear things that are contrary to their ultimate way of believing, you know, yeah, the cognitive dissonance comes forth, and then the fight or flight comes forth, and then beyond that, then total and utter shutdown results, because it totally defies their entire operating system, their entire mental state that they've been living in through life. That's psychology. But beyond that point, basically the biggest thing to do right now is to take a breath and to get oxygen to your brain. You know, don't let your fight or flight kick in, because that fight or flight is what people are doing right now, and that's what gets people hurt or killed, and that's what makes these mass shootings so effective. And that's why the globalists, the epitome of what we have created, they're essentially the focused representation of all of the problems in humanity they are us, we are them, as the old saying goes. You know, they couldn't be where they are without our complacency, without our help, without our support. They are where they are because we put them there. You know, we complacently vote for them every couple of years, you know, the puppets.
As Larkin Rose said in the mental malware video in regards to Hitler, he said, what could one stupid guy with a silly mustache have possibly done on his own without the support of the people?
Exactly. Exactly. And that goes for every government throughout history, both republics and tyrannies, regardless. You know, regardless if you like Abraham Lincoln or not, he said, you know, the destruction of the United States will not come from an outside force, but it will be the destruction of the United States will be determined by the people. We are the authors and the finishers of the story, as it were. That's not a direct quote. That's just a paraphrase, but he said something along those lines, and it holds true. You know, we people, regardless of what country we're from or where we're from, we are the authors of human destiny. Our genetics are, you know, millions of years of coding. I mean, a lot, you know, people in the science community go, oh, we're only around for 10,000 years or whatever. And it's like, who knows how long we were around? People's, you know, that's all assumptions. But anyway, beyond that, the whole Parkland shooting is just another, it's just another symptom of the overall societal issue. And these sorts of things will continue to happen in increased number as these energies begin to increase and continue increasing. And they won't stop until we on the individual level say enough is enough, and we take responsibility, you know, through whatever means necessary, until we stop passing the buck on to somebody else, until we stop, you know, pushing it off and throwing it to the side.
Buzzwords being what they are, I'd like to explain the concept of the energies increasing in a more, shall we say, mundane way that most people will be able to wrap their minds around, or as Cryon likes to say, to eliminate the woo-woo factor.
Right.
Kind of bring it down to brass tacks and in a way that everybody can understand and go, oh, okay, that's what they're talking about. It's been scientifically proven that humans advance and evolve right alongside their technology. And right now, the way technology is going, technology literally doubles every year. And we've seen that. From, you know, the year 2000 to 2012, there was infinitely more technological advancement than there had been in all of history prior, period. And then from 2012 to you know, 2018, an incredible, you know, much more, you know, amount of technological advancement. And what this technological advancement has done to us, especially in the form of social media, the ability for anybody to get on Hangouts and have discussions like this, that the ability for anybody to basically become their own little, you know, news broadcasting center or opinion broadcasting center, whatever you want to call it. We are being exponentially bombarded with information coming from all over the fucking place. And this is not going to stop. This is going to continue to become more exponential and tighten. What happens, the human body biologically can only handle so much emotional and psychological stress being put on it before it starts to physically tear down. Because, I mean, you got to remember, you've got a central nervous system. Your body is an electrochemical computer. And just like your desktop computer can overheat and fry and burn out and become an electronic paperweight if, you know, you overwork it, the body is the same way. So the only way to avoid that burnout is to be willing to let go of all of these narcissistic paradigms, surrender all of these biases, and be willing to learn to think in new ways, to be willing to let go of all these stupid conspiracy rabbit holes. And I'm not saying any of the conspiracy theories are wrong. I'm just saying until you address the root foundation, all the conspiracy theories are fucking irrelevant, and the rightness or wrongness of them is fucking irrelevant, because we're operating, you know, on a weak foundation that is kind of becoming a house of cards, as it were. And when you're the more you're willing to abandon all of this justification and, oh, I'm a justified victim, and you know, my team flat earth, team globe earth, team Christian, team Muslim, team liberal, team conservative, whatever, we're right, they're wrong, you know, when we're willing to let all that drop and be open to expanding our minds and think more holistically and see how things connect, we have more clarity, we see the bigger picture. And what we're doing right now is, it's like the equivalent of thinking we have to examine every grain of sand individually on the beach first before we can look at the whole beach and understand what a beach is by looking at the beach. That's what all this information overload is like. And when you let go of all that justification of being that false sense of approval and being correct all the time and all this other bullshit and making the other guy wrong and da-da-da-da-da, then you start to have the clarity of, oh, you know, the beach is the beach, right? So it's literally shift or die in the most real sense. And the good thing about this too is that at least the people who are ultimately going to choose self-destruction and are going to exit stage left, because this is such a personal process, whether you're the highest elite on Wall Street or the homeless guy in the cardboard box, or, you know, anywhere between, because it's so personal for each of us, and we're all experiencing, you know, these exponential bombardments and being put at a choice point to, you know, let go of our bullshit or self-destruct. The more this intensifies and people become more focused on their own self-destruction, it cripples their ability to do more harm en masse. I mean, I know people are about to say, well, wait a minute, what about that mass shooting? Isn't that harm en masse? Relatively speaking, no, because if all these crazy idiots had their wits about them, it would be genocide instead of a mass shooting. It would be 100,000 deaths, you know, per false flag, instead of 17. So it actually creates a form of damage control, because if we're so busy self-destructing, we don't have the wherewithal to plot and plan to take everybody else out with us, as it were. So even the higher up elites are going through their own processing of their malware and going through their implosions. And I mean, you could tell it physically. I mean, look at the rapid aging that, you know, that the elites are doing. They practically look like walking corpses. Look at how quickly, like, Obama rapidly aged. I mean, you know,
Hillary Clinton, for Christ's sake, you know, when she was doing her election campaign, she could hardly even stand and walk straight. She's a walking, talking dead person.
yeah.
1 foot in the grave already. You look at her face, she looks like hell. You know, and that's pretty much, the globalists are a macroscopic version of what all of these individual lone wolves or whatever have you, Elliot Rogers, whoever, you know, whether they're, you know, part of some grandiose conspiracy or they're just some lone wolf fucked up piece of shit, you know. You know, they're just, it's a representation of what what severe narcissism does to you, especially in these, you know, higher planes, as it were, as we keep progressing as a species towards something that's more functional as opposed to destructive.
So basically, our shit's being thrown in our face. We haven't been wanting to look at the problems because we have to be able to look at a mess to see that it's there and acknowledge it in order to be able to clean it up. Like, if an alcoholic says, no, I'm fine, I don't need help, go away, then they're obviously going to continue to be an alcoholic. And I think this is what the Bible meant when they said 2/3 of the earth will be destroyed. They weren't talking about land masses and lakes and trees and things like that. I think it's more like a laws of averages algorithm that when you the more you move into exponential climax of pure unadulterated stupidity and insanity, the laws of averages are going to state that pending a fucking miracle, that basically 2/3 of the existing population are not going to be willing to, let go of their narcissistic addictions. They're not going to be willing to shift. So that's 2/3 of the earth, 2/3 of the population, humans, being destroyed or self-destructing, which then bringing in the idea of the meek shall inherit the earth. The meek simply being the ones who decided, okay, we're sick of war, we're gonna calm the fuck down now and get off of our narcissistic high horse.
Exactly.
And it looks like Katerina bounced out. I don't see any message from her on Facebook or anything.
Earlier, if you recall, she said her sounded like her brother or somebody came into the room. Who knows what she's dealing with? All I know is I hope that she's doing all right, and she'll get back to us as soon as she can.
So now that I brought it down to brass tacks, please continue.
Anyway, yeah, I think that point has been duly noted and brought upon. So the next part of my demonstration here is I have my most previous purchase, or my most recent purchase, my 1911 Rock Island Armory. It's 45 automatic, 45 ACP.
Ban spoons! They made me fat! Ban spoons! It's a spoon's fault.
Mm-hmm. But speaking on the topic of mass shootings and guns and firearms, and considering that this tired old meme has resurfaced yet again like an old broken record that just won't shut up, that when you take it off the turntable, what do you do? Because it's a piece of shit record, you throw it at the wall and shatter it. Well,
let's ignore the fact that the first thing that every tyrant in modern history has done is disarm the people, taken away the guns, and then that's when the genocide happens. Let's forget about all that.
Speaking about narcissistic tendencies, the most narcissistic thing you can do is take the right to self-preservation and self-protection away from people. This is a 1911. It was developed by Samuel Colt in 1911. Well, I'd have to verify that. I'm tired, but anyway, it was designed and manufactured and patented in 1911, and it was based on a previous series of pistols developed by the Colt family, and it was developed just in time for World War I as a trench pistol, and it was originally developed in response to the Spanish-American War, where our normal soldiers and cavalry were all armed with .38 caliber revolvers. Well, here we go into the war history, the world, the imperialism and all of that stuff, and world wars and things of that nature. Oh, and food is being provided. Thank you very much. You're welcome. All American mac and cheese, you gotta love it. Anyway, so basically in the late 19th century, during the colonial expansion of the United States, and when we were kind of rounding up the Spanish Empire, as it were, and we went into the Philippines, we were shooting basically the Filipino regulars with 38s. Well, they were drinking rum and whiskey, and the .38 caliber was ineffective at stopping them. So naturally, as war brings to progression in technology and technological advancement, the revolver morphs into this semi-automatic pistol right here, which is This one is a civilian variant. It's got an ambidextrous safety. It's got a skeleton trigger, skeleton hammer. It's got kind of the modern bells and whistles. This one is ironically made in the Philippines. It's a Rock Island armory, which is built on U.S. tooling. And the Filipinos have been great allies over the years. You know, we liberated them from the Imperial Japanese in World War II, and they fell in love with American weaponry, the M1 Garand, the 1911. And these are imported into the USA from the Philippines. And they're made with American parts and American tooling and all of that stuff. But they're a great gun, very reliable. I haven't gotten to shoot this wonderful my pistol yet, but I've shot Rock Islands before, and they handle flawlessly at the range. They're beautiful. They're a very reliable weapon. But moving on past the history of this piece, from the top of my brain, this ultimately is a tool. And this tool, you know, mind you, yeah, it was originally developed to a military specification, but like anything, whether it's a flintlock pistol or, you know, flintlock musket, you know, it can put dinner on the table, or it can be used to shoot at paper out at the range, you know, to test your accuracy. It can be used for self-defense against somebody who means harm, grievous bodily harm, or it can be used in a very irresponsible and deadly way to kill people and to take lives and to do horrendous damage. But here's where the self-preservation and the taking individual responsibility comes in. Now, I'm not saying this is a 100% everybody needs to go out and buy one of these type of thing. If you don't want to and you're not comfortable with it for whatever reason, don't. I'm not saying you have to. I'm not metaphorically putting this to your head and saying, hey, go buy a gun, you worthless commie SOB. We need more red-blooded Americans. My doctor said I was pissing red, white, and blue, and it might be colon cancer, and I told him to F off because America. You know, that's not what I'm saying, you know. But as a centrist with a slight conservative lean, ignore the hammer and sickle, even though some of these red flakes want to call me a communist hick or a you know, literal communist co-founder who runs Kekistani Rehab for certain beta cucks out there. You know, no, I'm a red, white, and blue SOB. You know, it's basically, to me, it's like you can have my gun when you pry it from my cold dead fingers. But anyway, you know, this is a tool, and you know, had one of these been in the hands of one of the teachers at Parkland High School, you know, it's the same old argument, but that I've said 1,000 times in 1,000 different ways, but here I am saying it again because it still rings true. If a teacher had one of these and been competently trained to use it and had been training at the range and had the balls to bring it in concealed or something similar, derivative, you know, Springfield XD or whatever, and shot the intruder before they had a chance to harm a student, it would have made the news as teacher neutralizes potential school shooter. Details at 11. Nobody got harmed, nobody got hurt because somebody took the initiative, took the personal responsibility, and decided to pack. And the irony is, and here's the other part of the argument, people say, well, if somebody comes to the school, you call the police. And it's like, well, okay, here's the deal. When you call 911, when you call dispatch and you tell them what's going on, they're going to make a code 3 response. They're basically going to send all the troops. They're going to call in the SWAT team. They're going to call in the police.
When seconds count, the police will be there in minutes.
Yep. When seconds count, the police are only minutes away. But that amassing of resources, the tactical SWAT teams, the squad cars with K9s, the guys with their rifles, the sheriffs that have, you know, automatic AR-15s, you know, those nasty bad rifles that nobody ought to be allowed to own, those black, well, you should only be in the military and law enforcement to have one. Well, it's like, well, that's real hypocritical. So we need to have a huge military police state that, you know, does mass murder on mass scale, maybe not intentionally, not to say that everybody who joins the military, you know, because I am a supporter of the military. I have plenty of veterans who are friends of mine, you know, active duty members in the military who are friends of mine that I love with all my heart, you know, great people, you know, but going back to my original point, you know, how we're a war-driven society, there's a real hypocritical nature there. When we insist that we need to have this multi-trillion-dollar arms industry that profits off of death on all sides, but meanwhile deny citizens the very right to carry, you know, these same tools for their own self-preservation. You know, I'm not saying they have to be full auto. I'm not saying that they have to be, you know, exactly what the military is carrying. They don't, you know. There are certain things that I even agree, you know, for 99.9% of circumstances, unless you're out yahooing at the range because you have a full auto gun, you know, or overkill. You know, machine guns are awesome. I love machine guns. I love shooting them. They're fun. You know, full auto's great, but it's not practical. It's not practical for anywhere other than a war zone. It really isn't. And it's not really practical for anything else other than going out to the range and spraying thousands of rounds and just having a great old time, you know, because the United States of America is a wonderful place where you can do that. But for everyday average use, you know, a gun is a tool. That's all it is. It's a tool. It's not some inherent thing with a conscience that's going to load itself and go drive itself to some location and go harm a bunch of people. No, it takes a person with a finger on the trigger and ammunition in a magazine to do that. And as you can clearly see, I have no finger on the trigger. There's no ammunition in the gun, and the slide is pulled back, and it's on its standard military select, you know, hold open safety. You know, no round in the chamber. It's not going anywhere. It's not going to do anything unless I tell it to do something, unless I physically do this. And it's not even loaded. So, you know, but even still, unless I were to load a magazine in there and cycle it and then go bang, which it's dry, because I know, because I checked, you know, it's not going to do anything.
Dip it in satanic pasta, then we'll see. Then we'll see.
Yes, we'll dip it in the satanic pasta and see what it does. It'll start gurgling, and then it'll rotate in 360 degrees like in The Exorcist, and then it'll, you know, self-load, and then it'll, you know, move around like a Ouija board. But, you know, the main point is, you know, bad things happen, and that's been the cycle throughout our history. You know, people have been dying, and for very bad reasons, and they're all unfortunate. Every innocent life that gets taken is an unfortunate thing, but that is the byproduct of the society in which we live. You know, what happened in Parkland, Florida happens in Palestine every day. You know, little kids are out walking around, and Hamas terrorists, or, you know, the uglier factions of the Israeli government, you know, decide to genocide and, you know, massacre some.
That's another unfortunate thing too about the narcissism. It's like, you know, right now no one gives a fuck unless it's in their backyard. They don't really see the human connection, that, like, if it's happening anywhere, it's because it's a problem within humanity, and that core, you know, root problem should be addressed if you want to even come close to beginning to stopping it everywhere. Banning guns is not, you know, the solution. You know, as Larkin Rose, you know, likes to say, no matter what you tried to ban, or if you know, killed all the politicians or this or that or whatever, doing that is not going to cure the mental malware in the heads of the people, because it's, you know, I kind of look at it as like, you know, imagine like a football team. Here comes this little midget up to the football team starting to bark orders. Well, if the football team isn't worshiping that little midget as an authority, then that midget's probably in a lot of trouble. Little midget's going to get laughed at best.
Way to make it.
The point being, the top 1% is the little midget. The masses are the football team, and the only reason that they're able to do anything is because, you know, we obey because we're in the state of collective narcissism, and we've normalized, you know, this crappy reality. And, you know, just like, you know, and we think we're just, oh, human nature is bad and we're just wretches and whatever. No, scientific proof that the only default human operating system is surviving through adapting to the environment. You adapt through emulation. So if the environment was benevolent, then failure to adapt to benevolence would mean death. So, I mean, it's not a good or evil thing. It's an adaptation thing. And now humanity's at the point where we've literally changed our environment around us, cities and skyscrapers and jet planes and all of it. So we're not subject to being the victims of our environment anymore. We can literally change it. You know, so we have the capability to bring in that benevolent environment if we could ditch our addictions.
You know, it's really funny you mentioned that whole midget and the football player thing. You made me think of, speaking of movies that kind of profit off of that psychological addiction to narcissism, the classic Mel Gibson flick Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, with the midget, you know, who's riding on the big old retarded guy, you know, who can't think for himself, but the midget's the brain, you know, and you know, he always calls over the intercom and he's like, "Who control Thunderdome?" You know, it's the same sort of thing, you know, it's like, "Who control Thunderdome? The power maker," you know, and pisses off the black lady up above, you know, who's the quote unquote matriarch of the whole city of Thunderdome, you know.
You know, the funny thing is, you know, like the story in the Bible about the golden calf, the moral of the story was not to not pour gold into animal figurines, otherwise they're going to demonically possess you. The moral of the story is if you surrender your critical thinking and you surrender your right to be your own authority, and you become the poster child of the phrase, "There's a sucker born every minute," that then is the worship of the golden calf, which is why there's the bronze bull in front of the financial center building on Wall Street, for them to kind of admit this, that like, hey, you're worshiping our authority as your golden calf.
They refer to it as a bull market. I mean, you know, the calf, the bull. I mean, the globalists are all tied into that. They're tied into that meaning and that subtle sneaking it in. You know, we have complacently allowed it for 5,000 years. Every single one of us, Alex Jones, every single person living, breathing, alive, past, present, dead, and future at this point is allowing it. You know, but the acknowledgement of it on every level, us included, is the biggest middle finger to the establishment that you can possibly do at this point. It's the most effective thing that you can do, because yeah, at this point the damage is so, I can see myself, the infinite 1911.
Yeah, that's about to change. I'm hoping the audio is going to be okay on this. This is really short.
Hey Dave, I'm gonna be right back. I'm gonna go get some water.
Oh, you already know what I'm about to play, right?
I think banning guns is a good idea. I think I've seen that, but give me a second.
Okay. Yeah. The description here says a woman gives personal testimony about how she could have prevented her parents' murder had the gun laws been different. Don't watch this if you're in favor of gun bans, because the truth of this video is highly offensive. You're better off ignoring this and pretending these murders did not ever happen. Right now we're just kind of waiting for Richard to return. And this is a really short video. Hopefully the audio is going to come in okay on it. And it's just this chick giving her testimony on it before Congress. And as she'll explain, she's not a gun advocate. She's not a member of the NRA. She's not, you know, she's not, none of the stereotypes. You know, she's not. You know, she even admits in there that she doesn't even really like guns. You know, they're not her thing. And in just a moment, hopefully Richard will return sooner rather than later here. Here's the infinite Google tunnel, as I like to refer to it as. But yes, Richard will be right back in just a moment. Halfway tempting to locate some like Jeopardy theme music or something. Do 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 do. Okay. That's kind of cool the way this does this. Okay, Richard, come on back now. Any moment now, Richard will be back, and I can resume here. Just kind of trying to fill up space right now with chatter. It's almost like an on-hold message, like, your live stream viewership is important to us. Richard Hamilton will be available shortly. You are caller number 3641 in queue to be answered. Your estimated wait time is... Anyway. Yeah, so just waiting for Richard to return. And as my voice is picked up and the little green indicator bounces back and forth, we kind of see that bouncing motion going through the infinite tunnel of Google. Come on, Richard. Okay. Please hold. The next available Richard Hamilton will be with us momentarily. Alrighty. I don't know if anybody's watching live right now. Where it says the viewers at the bottom, it says 0 viewers, but YouTube does typically lie when it comes to that stuff. And Richard is back.
I have returned.
Okay, here we go.